scheduled on the sounding of an alarm all personnel to evacuate into the Hollis car park. The council, members of the public and the press may film, record, photograph for live and or subsequent broadcast this meeting only when the public and the press are not lawfully excluded. Any member of the public who attends the meeting and objects to being filmed, recorded, photographed should advise the clerk in advance, who will instruct that they are not to be included in the filming, recording, photographing. Does everyone agree with that? Everyone's happy with that? Good, right. Welcome, everybody. Public question time? No. Nobody this time. During the winter months. Apologies for absence.
Haven't received any.
We haven't received any for this. Declarations of interest and dispensations. So, number 1, members to declare any interest which are not currently entered in the members' register of interests, or he/she has not notified the monitoring officer of it, to receive written requests for dispensation for disclosable pecuniary interests, and 3, to grant any request for dispensation as appropriate. Anybody? No. Okay. Number 4, to confirm the previous minutes of the Finance and Ops, 18th of December.
Okay.
So, sign and date each page.
Yes, please.
No. It's the 15th. 24.
Yeah, no, it was good.
It's terrible in January, isn't it? Always to remember it's 24.
Yeah.
Of the following year.
I found that for maternity. 2 years out. I had a date. Thank you.
Yeah.
And that's the next one.
Right, so,
Sorry.
okay. Yeah. Item 5, approval and payments and signature of the monthly bank reconciliation.
Good to hear.
So you've got a copy of that.
Yeah, this, apologies, I did it double sided, it should be separate. So we sign the front page and then the left.
Right.
It's actually 2.
Is everybody all right with
Yeah.
those?
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, one's just a clarification, really. It's not an issue with the actual money.
Yeah.
We've awarded £1,000 grants to the Community Trust for the Winter Warm project,
Yes,
which is great, but I don't recall that grant application.
it was awarded last October and was never paid, and they chased it
Okay. When was it agreed?
last October.
Okay.
No, October.
The year last October.
The year last October.
So before this council,
Yes.
Yeah.
okay, so
It was at the closure of their accounts, I think the accountant got in touch and
so
said,
are we saying this is retrospective and it should have been paid in the previous administration? So they're not applying for any money for this current
no.
No.
winter warmer?
It was a retrospective one, it was never paid. And then, and
So again, it's coming out of this year's
it's going to
money,
come out
which
this
should
year
have come
because
out of...
it should have been paid
Last year, the year
at the
before.
time.
Right.
Yes, it was, let me get my figures right, it was approved in October 22, it should have been paid in October, November 22, but because there was a change of staff, it was never paid, and then it was never chased, and then they were closing down the year end, Joe got an email saying we've never had it, and we've been to the records and it was never paid, so we
Okay, that's well, at least we know. The second thing is there's a lot of
yes,
transactions for Midsummer Norton Football Club
Yeah.
for £8,000. There's quite a few of them.
yes, Joe and I, she's going to take, she said it's her fault, but we did it together. We had a huge mess up. Everything from, this has actually gone over 2 months. When we were in month 8, everything got entered into month 9. So we had to delete everything in month 9, and you can't just delete it. You have to.
No, I understand that.
You have to do a negative and balance. So she did some wrong and I did some wrong. So apologies. Month 9
It's a bit of a mess.
is a mess, but what got paid was the correct payments, and hopefully it will balance out over the year. So
And what was the payments? Midsummer Norton Football Club. Which is Midsummer Norton Football Club? Because you've got Welton Rovers Football Club, so it's not Welton Rovers. So which football club is getting?
I think they're the It's the people that, is it White Way they play? It's just the sort of small, White City, sorry.
Up
Yeah.
Lads Hill.
I think that's the one.
So
Because they came to us for a grant a little while ago and we decided to maybe help them out with their strips.
£8,000.
No, it wasn't as much as that.
No.
No.
So what's the £8,000 figure
Isn't
then?
that to do with the site?
No, that was actually never paid. There's a positive and negative for each one.
There's 3
There's 5.
negatives and 2 positives.
I'm just trying to understand
No,
what.
you're right, because it is confusing and it does look.
It is, and it was all part of my fault because I put extra on because I was doing the backwork and then I missed it, so I put extra
So
on.
are you saying what happened was sort of on paper it's shown as being paid and then shown as not being paid and then shown as being paid and then not being paid?
Yes, because we have to sort of put a negative
Yeah.
balance.
So just to clarify, so there was never a requirement to pay £8,000, or there was a requirement to pay £8,000, and we paid it once, or
I don't think there was ever a requirement to pay £8,000. Is that right?
It's not on the payments for month 9. It may have been month 8.
No, I don't recall
No.
ever needing to pay a football club
No.
£8,000. I think the whole.
just seems a lot of money to give to a
Yeah,
football
yeah, yeah.
club.
I think
We
the whole
didn't
thing's
agree
an
that, no.
administrative
So
error.
I think it got put in the wrong code and we had to leave it, so it never actually went to
Okay, but we're happy that we've never paid £8,000
Yeah.
with some football club.
Yeah, so month 9 is a complete, I'll go the complete
So can we-
unprofessional.
how can we sign it off if it's...
Well, they balanced out,
Does it
didn't
make
they?
it-
So,
Does it balance out?
Yeah.
It does balance because the bank reconciliation balances.
okay.
So it does balance, but it is,
Oh, there's
Yeah.
the
it's a
one.
mess.
There's one there.
Oh, I don't mind it being a mess. I'm just trying to understand
Yeah.
that we haven't paid a football club
No, we haven't
£8,000.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Right.
So 3 negative, 3 positive, nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
So it's
overall.
3,800 going out, 3,800 coming
yeah.
back or whatever.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So there isn't an actual payment out to the football club.
No.
Right. Okay.
Didn't you have another question though? Didn't somebody else have a question about it?
Well, I just no. I
Was yours
just
football
felt there were a
as
lot. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. There was
So
a
Joe
lot of.
Joe corrected it and then I corrected it and we got it. It is correct. The correct payments went out to the correct people.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're happy.
I had just a couple of questions, really. I'm sorry to kind of bring them up again. One thing is I wanted to double check now what the situation is to do with publishing the accounts for payments. So I didn't realise until recently things like the draft budget weren't published on the website, so the public weren't able to download that.
Someone went up now.
Yeah, but it wasn't before
Yeah,
going
it
into
was
the
now
meetings.
for a
Well,
while.
I'd have thought anything that's included in an agenda should be public as part of the agenda, so the public have access to both, unless it's labelled as confidential, and then they don't. Because if we're going to discuss it in a public meeting, I think the public should be able to see things.
Because it's a working document, and people will come and say, "Oh, you put it in the grants of £5 on so and so," and then when you come to prove that you haven't. So you don't tend to publish the draft because it is a working document, and it changed daily until you approve it last week, and the public will say, "Oh, as I say, oh, you put £5 in. Can I have the £5?" No, it's not in your budget. Well, it's shown on your draft budget.
Okay. Well, I'm not 100% sure that that's the correct way to do it, but
I don't think we published it before.
we always did. Yeah. In fact, we made. I think there was a complaint last time that it wasn't easy enough to find on the website. So, but leaving that to the side, I wasn't sure what the deal is with these reports. So again, I think because they're part of the agenda, they should either be published alongside the agenda or they should be labelled as confidential.
No, the bank rec and the report from Realtors doesn't go on
Right.
doesn't publish because there's obviously a lot of personal
Yeah.
information in it. The monthly list that you also got on
Yeah.
goes on the agenda under monthly payments.
Right. So that is on the website because
It's not under agenda. It
Right.
goes under monthly. It goes
Okay.
under finance section.
So it might be easier if people just because I quite often download the agendas from our website. Just if they were together, it might be easier for people.
And that's how it was set up. So I understand how.
We can do it anyway. Like I'm just saying, it's really just a question. It's really just a question. So yeah, that was that. What else I was going to say? Yeah, normally when we get the reconciliation, it doesn't have quite as many details on it, even for this committee. So a lot of the transfers were to individual members of staff, and I thought those should be more confidential than they are.
I can't confidential that.
I've never seen the actual direct transfers to staff before with numbers next to
No, I
them.
was told by internal auditor to start introducing that.
Oh,
That's
okay. Right, fair enough.
You've
That's
seen it, but I do.
right. Okay, if you're happy with that, that's fine.
I was told by the internal auditor
That's-
to do
that's
back and forth and back.
okay, and then that's fine. I noticed in the first part it was obviously redacted to an extent, or not redacted, it just said salaries and wages, but other parts were a lot of personal transfers. So if you're happy with that, that's absolutely fine. There's a couple. Sorry.
Sorry, on that point, I wouldn't have a problem if you were going to blank out names on
Yeah.
of payments direct when it names a specific member of staff. I think
They say that doesn't go on the website anyway.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate that we're all responsible people, but I'm just more comfortable with documents not having names on.
Yeah, just because you can accidentally.
Especially when it's personal data like salaries and stuff like that. You know, documents can get
I
mislaid or.
shall have a go at doing that.
Yeah.
Because obviously it's a realtors, I then have to do it as a PDF. And
Okay.
that's okay.
Don't create extra work. It's more
No,
just
no,
for your
no.
own sort of security, I guess.
Yeah.
I thought I'd mention
I
it.
would recommend you to do that in report so you
Okay.
so you see.
But perhaps you could give,
That's fine.
and then maybe, I mean, I don't know, I'm just thinking that perhaps you can give the staff a reference number instead of a name on the system, so that it only
Yeah,
prints
that's
out a
good.
reference number against that person.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. This might
Yeah,
help.
good idea.
Possibly. Because I'm just aware of the fact that too much information. We have our own private laptops. They're only as secure as we don't lose them and stuff. The less we know, sometimes the better, unless we need to know. And obviously we haven't seen that before. That's why I mentioned that. I wasn't complaining at all.
It was the last meeting.
Was it? Well, sorry, it's one of the few meetings I've paid attention. I was going to say that I noticed there's a transfer to a previous member of staff. Is that because a direct debit or something needs to be updated?
No, because she didn't get paid the increase in salary that she was entitled to for the month of April when she was still working. So it all got backdated, didn't it, when we got an uplift in payment. So she came back to us and said, that month I worked for you, I didn't get paid the extra.
Yeah, it's, if you once you've left, because the pay award starts on the 1st of April, we don't get it until the unions and the government decide the pay award. The pay award
Which is much later in the year.
didn't come out until November, which is then backdated to April, and if you're at a previous council, say from April
Okay.
to May, you are entitled to have a. So that's what it was.
That's interesting. That's fine. That's good. I've never been in the position before where I've had a pay rise backdated to previously when I'd resigned, but that is good to know.
It may only be public.
Absolutely. No, that's fine. I just saw her name. I thought it might have been an out-of-date payment or something, but I'm glad it's not. I noticed there was a Christmas message in the Journal. Was that advertising the switch-on event?
No, that was a message from the council wishing the residents of Midsummer Norton a very Merry Christmas.
I missed it. Oh, it's okay. I'll go back in time and check
It was
it.
actually really badly printed. It was really
Oh.
fuzzy.
It was very pale, wasn't it? You couldn't read it.
Oh.
I'm sorry,
Not
I couldn't
very
read
well.
it. I could read it because I knew what it said, but I was a bit disappointed about it.
There was a nice letter from the Mayor. Right, there was a job advert to the Devon Association of Local Councils. I don't understand what that was.
because they've got a better way of advertising, apparently.
All right, good
So
then.
that was in the summer for the.
Oh, it was this summer. It was part of the programme. That's absolutely fine. And I noticed the decision's £1,000. Shouldn't have council decided if we wanted to start a yearly subscription for the new software?
It's my delegation.
Right, okay. Okay, thank you. Questions?
But are we happy to sign the form?
Yeah, all happy now.
After all that.
Slipping out, not really, but yeah. So just the top.
Yeah, I think I then I signed it. Yeah, no, the fact report you had last month. And that,
And this one.
yes, it should have been two different forms, but I can.
Apologies. Oh, sorry. No, no,
course
no.
it was
7:15. Sorry, it was confusing. No, don't apologise.
It was
It
7:15.
was. Oh, well, that's
So
well,
you're
I'm
actually
not
a
very
minute
good.
earlier, Charlotte. You're a minute early. Well done.
Cut it fine.
Okay, so we're on to item 6, approval of grants. 6.1 is Midsummer Norton and Rostock Dial a Ride, and 6.2 is Somerset Farmers Markets. I sent a message in because to my understanding, we have overspent. We've spent more money than we allocated in the grant budget, and we overspent as a year in the financial year. So in that context, and also I questioned about whether we've been paying these before, and I think we have been paying the Somerset Farmers Market £12.50. I think it says
we had a 3-year rolling agreement, didn't we? For the
3-year agreement.
It was a 3-year agreement.
Yeah.
£1,200 per year for 3 years. I don't know when that finishes or finished.
It's finished, it's not in the budget. Nobody suggested to put it in the budget, so it's not in the budget. I think it has finished, yes.
Well, was it in last year's budget?
No,
Is
so
it?
why did you have seen that?
No, because I've seen it.
It was brought up at a council meeting. I'm trying to think if it was before or after I joined the council, but it was certainly brought up at the beginning of earlier in the year, because it came up at the same time as there was a discussion about 2 grants that had been awarded on a 3-year basis. One was to the radio station for £3,000 a year, and a second one had been granted to the radio station that overlapped, so they got £6,000, and they should have only got £3,000. And it also came up at the same time that there was also a 3-year agreement for the farmers markets for £1,200 per year for 3 years. So I don't know when that last payment, whether it happens.
Well, and they want to increase it, don't they? So maybe that would suggest that the agreement is.
My understanding was that it was paid this year. Last year.
Yeah.
Earlier last year.
It must be itemised in the budget. And the
I
expenditures
actually
from
couldn't
last year.
find a copy of your budget last year. And I'm going to have to admit
12,000.
something. I only discovered it a couple of weeks ago when I was doing your budget. Your budget on your realtors is actually your budget from 2 years ago. Because nobody put in the budget from last year into realtors. So the budget on your accounting system is from 2 years, which is say from 2 years ago. It's too late now to go in and change it, and then I couldn't find a copy of your approved budget from last year, and it's too late to change it now anyway. I have put in next year's, so when we do the year end in April, you will have the correct copy.
So, and I think,
Anyway.
I think 6.1.
I'm not surprised, but at least you found it and you sorted it, which is good.
So the 6.1 is, I think, maybe is a similar situation where we've been given some money in the past, maybe, and then the Dial a Ride. Do we think we've
previously been given money? Yes.
but not necessarily as each year.
No, they just have.
Well, the farmers market sounds like an arrangement we've had.
Well,
maybe.
So
taking them one at a time, I think
So
the Dial a Ride, I know I'm the first person to say that we're over budget and we can't afford any more grants. I think Dial a Ride, they do an amazing job.
Yeah.
And the current situation where the bus subsidies have been stopped by Baines, bus services have been cut by Wecker, I think there's more demand on Dial a Ride than there's ever been before. Which puts us in a tricky situation because we're almost subsidising Baines and Wecker for not doing their jobs. But there's so much pressure on Dial a Ride and our elderly trying to find transport with these cuts from Wecker and Baines. I don't know if we've got much choice but to support them. And I think we have to support Dial a Ride. I think for what they do for our residents. We have to find a way to say.
Okay.
I do think, things like Dial a Ride, we should support. I know we're taking one at a time, but things like the farmers market, but we almost, in a way, have to come up with a sort of agreement, because their financial pressures will be the same next year. It's not like a one-off startup cost or whatever. They've said just general running costs, which isn't that dissimilar to the market, I suppose. But it's almost like we have to then, if we're going to support these things most years, we're almost going to have to decide to budget accordingly for that, because they're going to be continuing grants, unlike, for instance, the Scouts come to us for the one-off.
Yeah, all we need to know for these organisations is they still exist and they're still doing the work, don't we? Rather than have to apply to them.
I mean, I thought the accounts, and I only looked really quickly for Dial-A-Ride, look really healthy. And I don't dispute they're doing an amazing job, and I don't dispute more people would need them. And I'm more than happy to put £1,000 towards them, but if we haven't got the money, that's more of an issue, isn't it?
Their costs are huge and they're growing.
I get that.
And I think it's different to a lot of charities because they've got a lot of burden on them in terms of operating costs and maintenance costs and stuff like that. So they have to maintain a good level of reserve and funding because it's a difficult area to fund.
Well, I know, but I get all of that. But I thought, is it £1,000 they're asking for? Was not really much towards the huge operation that they're running.
Oh, I appreciate it. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I don't think it would break their bank. Although I'm sure every penny counts and would probably put on another 500 lifts or something. But the point is, it shouldn't be for us to support. It should be WECO and it should be Baines because they're pulling the bus services. So do we not support it and say we haven't got the funds and be honest and write an article and say, actually, here we are supporting this amazing charity. We can't afford to anymore. Can Baines do it? I don't know.
That's a very good point.
Well, the argument that's going on at the moment, I mean, there's a ridiculous political football now between Baines and WECO, and pretty much almost Lib Dems and Labour. It's all become very toxic. Baines are complaining that WECO have got £52 million that they're not releasing for bus services. WECO are complaining that Baines have cut all their subsidies since the election, so our rural services aren't. And in the middle of that, there's our residents desperately trying to, particularly elderly residents, just trying to find a way to get down to the high street to pick up a prescription or or just get out of the house. Yeah. So I understand what you're saying.
I'm happy to support
I do as well. And I think for ages I've been trying to argue that town councils shouldn't be picking up the tab for local authorities. But the problem is, if we don't, the tab isn't picked up. Yeah. So what you might argue with someone like Dial-A-Ride is it's quite a big organisation, but their operation in Midsummer Norton is not that big. So we're helping subsidise the Midsummer Norton bit. And it'd be the same, again, putting the two together, same with the Somerset Farmers Market. It's a relatively big organisation of 7 different markets, but this little bit helps contribute to our little bit of it. So maybe it's just one of the things as a town council we go,
I think the numbers for Midsummer Norton were quite large on their application.
Right,
Is there not something as well? And I'm only sort of trying to understand the process here of why we would find the money, which is fine, to support these entities. But if we haven't got money in the grants pot, when the next people come in, if we don't value them as much, do we just say you can't then? I wonder where the equality is in that. And I'm just putting it out there, is there an equality policy that says we can do this? Or we can't?
Could we go with 500 to each of them? That would be putting our grant at £1,000 as opposed to 2.5.
What I would say is, well, I mean, I don't know if the pair of them would be happy about being lumped together just for sort of convenience. I did make a question as well that our new grant policy has 2 application windows. But I don't see why that's necessarily got to tie up with when payments are due, because obviously people want obviously right, exactly. So
if you delay these in July, it will come out of your July budget, so your budget of 20,000 for grant will then immediately be reduced to 17.5.
Exactly. Well, can I just say that any grant application is going to reduce our grant budget? I think we should all agree that. So yes, because we've allocated some of the grants. Any grant application will reduce the budget. That's a bit like when you start to spend your pocket money, it tends to go down. What I would say is we've got this new system of 2 windows. We don't necessarily know when the farmers market, it's not like I think they urgently need money, it's more like an ongoing maintenance to try and support our one sort of functioning sort of commercial market in town. So I wouldn't imagine there's any reason why payment for that wouldn't be able to come through next year's funds. Is there any problem with that?
When we're having the first round of
Well, this
January
is
and
it.
July.
January.
Yeah, well,
So are we?
July and January. Yeah.
July. So we're not having one this January.
Oh,
Well,
have
this
we-
is
We're not having a because it's for
It's not
the,
going
is it
to
for the
force
next
until the next financial year, does it?
Sorry. So
And I suppose if you were to do that, then that's fine. But your Finance and Ops Committee coming forward might not be the same people that are sitting around here, and they would have the same. They may have the same beef that you had when you found out that half of your grants policy had already been spent by the time you came into the committee. That's just something to bear in mind.
because it's a different financial year.
right. Okay. So for clarification's sake, then, if this committee were to resolve to, say, award the grant to Farmers Market, which then became payable in July, there's nothing stopping it. There's no financial implication.
Then in July, when I come to your July meeting, I would say you owe your £1,500 down on your budget for grants.
£1,500 down.
Because
Right.
it got allocated in your last financial
we
year.
couldn't
Which
really.
is a bit unfair to grants coming in.
Yeah. Anyway, well, if that's okay, then I'm happy to propose the first grant. Is there a seconder for that? Thank you. Anyone in favour?
What paid now?
No,
Yeah.
that we resolve to accept the grant now, and it'll become payable in the next financial year.
Oh, no,
Well, no,
I
So
wouldn't
no,
agree to that. No, that's
No.
what's caused the problems in the first
Yeah.
place. It's
Mm.
carrying
Okay.
over
So we are
grants.
just pay it from this year's accounts.
You
Yeah.
have
Can
to
I
be
before we-
in this financial year. The
Okay.
new budget
Yeah.
is set for the new financial
Okay.
year. We
Yeah.
start the new budget on zero.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I think
Oh, that's fine then.
I think one of the problems we've got is that the current grant budget was £4,000 over on day one
Yeah.
because it carried over from the previous year. And I think we'll keep ourselves in that cycle if we're not.
Okay, that's fair
Yeah.
enough.
No, we're either saying we're agreed to award it and we award it now
Okay.
from this financial year, or we say it'd come back in
Yeah.
July. and
Well, I thought what would
September.
happen in clerking terms is
Yeah.
the money instantly gets debited from an account, even though it's not been paid yet. That's,
Yeah. I know.
so it becomes marked anyway.
But
I'm
can I just ask
only
before we,
Ilka, not Silka. Anyway,
Can I just ask before we do it? In the last meeting, or maybe not last one before, we've allocated money when we've been over budget before, but we've found the money somewhere, have we?
Well, it will come out of your general reserves.
Right.
or unspent other budget.
Yeah. So we right. Okay. So does anybody?
Do we have an agreement then? I
propose-
proposed you
Do-
seconded
do
for
we
this
have
year's.
For this,
Do we have to give it all? I mean, in the past, we've reduced amounts of money that we've given for grants.
Well, I proposed it. Sean seconded it. It goes to full.
I think when we're talking about a marginal amount like that,
Yeah.
and I mean, I think Dynamite are reliant on a lot of donors providing a little bit of support rather than having one big source of income. So if you go to all the parishes that you support and they all give £1,000 each, suddenly you've got enough to run a.
Yeah.
I mean, look at this. I mean, they've made 17,000 journeys to and from Midsummer Norton in the last year, and it seems that the vast majority of those are people. Well, elderly people trying to get to doctors and dentists and things like that.
It's
So
quite good value for £1,000.
I think
I
so.
think
for
it's a
merchant,
great
okay.
cause. I just think it puts into complete disarray everything that we
Well,
say
I
about
think the biggest thing
Sorry,
is-
that's so...
We are where we are in this financial year, which we've inherited, but next year we have a new budget and we also have a grants policy, and the combination of those two things give us more control over what happens from the new in the new financial year.
I understand all of that, but we are going against everything that we've said we put in place.
Well,
And
It's
I think they're a great thing, but I don't think we'd be saying this if this was a football kit or something
no,
else.
it wouldn't.
No, but what I'm saying is it's not for us to judge what is a good cause.
Well, unfortunately, it is.
It is.
That's the.
Well, okay, but it's not. It does. It's not very equitable to those who are putting into the grant system because we're not upholding the grant system. So I'm just saying.
Yeah. Oh, and that's
So
exactly
it
why.
sort of
That's,
makes it
but
all
that's
null and
exactly
void.
why we brought in a new grant system.
But
And
we're not
we've-
adhering to it.
Well, it's a bit of a funny one, isn't it? Because we've kind of brought in a new grant schedule,
Hasn't
Not
come in.
going
but
to
it's
give us
mid-financial
the
years,
Is
so
that-
we're kind of. Is that what we're at?
agree that you get now.
Yeah.
But the policy is for the next financial year.
Oh right.
The grant policy we've agreed is for the next financial year, and it falls in line
So
with
we'll
the
just
new
get
budget.
worse.
Ah.
So
So
we're
if
going to act like you said. You don't want us to act up until the next financial year.
I mean, the thing
Okay,
is
I
that
understand.
we have we have to make a judgment call. We have to make difficult decisions.
But they're not
And then-
financially.
And I would think, yes, and buying a football kit wouldn't necessarily be a priority, but elderly people getting to a doctor's and dentist, I would say is.
Yeah, but if you looked at the accounts, they're really healthy, those accounts. For £1,000 isn't going to make them go out of
But I
being
think you've
able
got
to
to understand
function.
the structure of the type of charity they are and the risks in any type of transport charity.
It doesn't mention any risks there when I read it. It looked like a really healthy set of accounts. But it's fine. I think it's a great charity. So I'm just saying, I thought we were all saying we had no grants money left. And
We haven't.
So
You're
we're
right,
not
we
going
haven't
to
got
give it
any
to
money.
Somerset Farmers
We're not.
Market,
We're
are we?
not. We're not. The council. Should stop using the word we, shouldn't we? The council may have overspent its grant budget, but it is a long way from running out of money. This is why we have 6 to 9 months of reserves at any one time.
You will be over budget at the end. Well, you're over budget now.
Yeah, but sorry.
But you have a
Simply-
you have
sorry.
a health and general reserve.
Yes, exactly. That's what I said. That's what reserves are for, and small figures like that are small. So
Well,
that's
let's
it.
up our grants budget then.
Well, we are doing for the next, yeah.
So it's
can
funny,
we draw
isn't it?
this
Because we've got a new
to
grant
conclusion
system.
then? Yeah.
We've got a new grant window, which is why it's January. But because it's kind of fallen lopsidedly in the financial years, that's why we've got a little bit of a mishmash of. That's it. So it's fair enough. Okay, I'm with you now. I don't fully get it.
All right, so we've had the discussion. I think everyone's had to say.
I've proposed it, and
proposed
Sean
it,
seconded it.
seconded
We're on to
it.
the vote now.
So we're all in favour of, or who's in favour of?
I'm in favour of it. I'm just going to go with it. Yeah.
Is it
Well,
sure?
But it's been proposed and seconded.
Yeah.
So that's 2 votes.
Yes.
Is that both of them?
No,
No, just
One
the
at a
first
time.
it's not
Dialogue.
dialogue at the moment.
Dialogue.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's-
yeah, I'm up for that.
3, 4, right.
Yeah. I feel it. I totally see what you're saying. I feel sometimes though it's kind of important the town council put a bit of a token. It's a little bit of a token gesture into it to acknowledge the fact that
Yes.
the includement's
No, I
not.
just want to make sure everyone gets a taken gesture.
No, you're right. I
Who
think-
needs it? That's you know.
Well, that was that the kind of the Westfield approach. Maybe we should lots more smaller grants.
So when your grants come in July, you know, you could have 1 for 3, you could have 1 for 4, you could be 5. Then you say, no, I'm not giving you 5, I'm giving you 2. Or
Yes.
Yeah.
That's when you split
Yeah.
it midway.
And you can really see what you're looking at as opposed to all the strips and drabs. Like if you've just got the whole load in front of you, I think it'd be easier to make
That's
decisions.
why
and
it's
analyse
just-
it.
that's
I like
why-
your thinking.
You probably need to go out in the newsletter and press release this new policy because it's going to catch up to people.
Well, Radstock probably says their grants awards aren't they, at the moment. That's in the I think online. In Facebook or something.
Do you-
Their rounds of
Do beware the deluge of applications as well. So.
yeah.
Yeah, and then it's up to you to say.
Yeah,
yes.
and then they can apply
Yes,
again
no,
later in the
yeah.
year if they. So shall we move on to the Somerset Farmers Market for £1,000, which is
No,
1,500. Sorry.
1,500.
And I've just got so we weren't aware of this agreement that had been made in 21, but it was that members resolved to award the revenue grant application for financial years 22 to 24 to the farmers market for 1,200 for 3 years. We didn't know about that. It's only since you've been talking that I found it.
Yeah.
Just-
So including 24?
Yeah.
So they're asking for 50, but we'd agreed 1,200.
So what this application is they're actually asking, they're not actually applying for a new grant, they're applying for an increase of the 1,200 to 1,500.
Yeah.
That's what their application's for, isn't it?
All right. So they're just asking for an additional
Yeah,
£300 for this year.
Yeah, but because we didn't know about that,
Right.
it's not in the budget, and it
Right.
wasn't in
None
the
of it
previous
is in the
year's
budget.
budget, so we
Okay.
didn't have any sign that this
Gotcha.
was an agreement.
Right,
It's only
fair
since you mentioned it that I've been able to find it.
It
Okay.
was paid out of last year's money.
I will.
They
Well,
were paid with it last year.
I don't know if they were paid it or if it was they were only paid in 22.
Right.
I don't know.
I'll start off. I'll speak in favour of their proposal. That it was really disappointing to hear other farmers' markets have actually closed, and the town councils have taken criticism for not having supported the markets, and they've gone. And so, for me, the town council decided to have a bit of a presence there a year and a half ago, because we're a market town and we have one market, and we seem to be spending an awful lot of money trying to build new markets, and the first thing you want to do is not lose the market you've got. So I think I would say for £1,500, which I believe largely goes towards providing entertainment at the market. Personally, I think it's essential that the Town Council continues to support them.
Anybody else?
I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with the 1,200 that's already we've already agreed, it's already been committed, the 1,200, so we have to pay that. That's already been put through. I don't know about the increase of 300, because I'm not sure that I'm convinced. I mean, it's a very valid thing, market. I mean, first, can I ask a couple of questions? I mean, first of all, on top of the money that we pay, do we pay them a fee each month for our stall? We don't. So we get given that stall for free, included in the. I mean, you could argue that this is rent rather than grant money for our pitch, whichever way you want it, whichever way it worked out in terms of how you would finance it. The other concern I have, which doesn't necessarily affect what we're doing today, but my understanding is that they're not interested in moving the market to the market square when it's ready, which concerns me because I think you're going to find, first of all, you're going to find Heritage England are going to say, well, we just gave you £1 million to create a market square, and all we've done is effectively tidy up the car park. So unless we have a market on that market square, I think, and Baines and Wecker, everyone that contributed towards making that market square a market square. So that concerns me that they're not committing to utilising. Are we going to end up with two markets competing with each other?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, the conversations I've had from them, they concur. They don't seem minded. They don't seem enthusiastic, certainly, about moving. But they are in quite a nice spot already. As far as I'm concerned, if there were to be a market at the or markets at the island, it'd be really important not to have open competition, because in small closed spaces like that, as much as we approve of competition, it actually harms traders. So, I mean, it's not like we'd have an alternative farmers market at the island, I don't think. I was going to say, I think it would be quite good if they were minded to move closer to the island.
Well, at the moment, I believe that on the same day as we have the farmers market, there's a craft fair in the soda centre that nobody knows about.
And the Methodist Church, it's craft everywhere.
Right.
But we could have another market a different day, so it wouldn't.
But this doesn't. I think the whole point of all these millions of pounds on an indoor-outdoor market space, so we can have this amazing market and compete with places like Wells and stuff like that, and Froome and all these other markets. But the market isn't prepared to move there.
No, but I mean, that in the end, that's up to them, isn't it? Really,
It's up to them. But
then we can influence them.
Baines aren't going to be too happy to find that the market hasn't moved after they spent all that money on the market square.
Well, they won't be getting the rent from the market. They won't get from the stalls, because Baines get the rent from the stalls for using the Holly.
I heard they don't pay much or anything.
No,
for the Holly's Garden.
Much. I mean, we could influence their decision by saying we will give you the money if you move to the. Can't we?
Well, I think it's not.
Conditional. But my understanding, again, from talking within the Cultural Consortium and the Heritage and the Trust, is that if they staying there, and that seems to be what they're saying, but the markets extend, so the crafters market moves into the town hall. There's more of a heritage or different. There's other stores that complement what goes on there, so it's different kinds of things. So it becomes more of an event rather than a smaller isolated market. I understand what you're saying.
What, two different management structures?
Yeah.
Well, you have got two competing markets there.
Oh, it depends if you could have one could
different things.
Yeah, it wouldn't be two produce markets.
It would be a whole market day within Midsummer Norton the first Saturday.
Because remember, within the farmers market is quite strict, isn't it? So it's produce, it's locally produced produce, and they generally try really hard to avoid traders within the market that compete. So I've heard those are some of the pitfalls that things like Froome Independent's fallen into, where you have lots of competing traders, and traders are now going, not making as much money as I want to. So that's the way their market, their operations.
You're not allowed to have any food markets there in case they they conflict with the farmers market up here, which is under a different control and management structure. This is fraught with problems.
Think so?
I think so. I think the whole point of this millions of pounds was that we reinstate the farmers market. We have an indoor and outdoor market space, which would be the best in the county or best in the area. I don't know. It's just it concerns me.
I mean, from that, I mean, we could talk to them and we can ask them to come along and. I think there's the thoroughfare. From the car park, in terms of them, the green area. There's shops around. People are going down from Sainsbury's or Costa or the car park. They get a lot passing trade. They're visible from the cars and things passing. People cross the road and use it. So I can see reasons why they would want to. It's you started by saying it's not directly relevant now. We don't know when the market area is going to be. The island is going to be ready to be used. Work's not starting for some time. So it might not be in the next, calendar year.
It's starting soon.
Yeah.
It'll be next year.
It's going to be complete this year.
I think it's going to be finished. It'll be finished by Christmas.
Yeah.
We've probably gone off piste. I mean, did you watch the viral Facebook clip of how great the market is when I interviewed all the traders? And they all said they loved the location. So I hear what you're saying, Sean. I mean, I also think it's quite small. So I think they're at capacity, aren't they? Is it 17 stalls at the Holly's Garden? I think the new market configuration at the island is about 17 stalls on a good day. So I think there is scope for having 2 markets on the same day if you want to properly market town. So
provided it's all under one management umbrella.
Maybe. I mean, certainly I think... as I said right at the beginning, I'm keen to support that farmers market because I think it's very good for the high street. Certainly, we need to be having these discussions going into 2025 to work out exactly what we want to be supporting, don't we?
So we've got 2 councillors who are minded to support, but one who would support it at the amount that
I'm going to make a proposal. Will anyone second it?
Can I interrupt a moment? Because I've been looking up payments. Because they've had this 3-year deal, the farmers' market had 3,000 in April.
All right.
Which is the beginning of this financial year.
3,000.
So they had through the farmers' market revenue grant payments for £3,000 actually went out in March.
Do you think that was because they hadn't had the previous years?
Is that another one? Is that an overlap the same way as the?
I know it's 1,200. Sorry.
Yeah, so they had 300. They had 3,000.
Well, we had that issue with the radio station where the 2 3-year overlaps. Is there some? I mean,
I think this is. I think they've had the 3 years. This is a new one, but it just happens to fall in the same financial year as their last payment. So they're asking.
Can I suggest that we go and get some clarification before we make a decision on this one? Exactly what they have had, what they haven't had. What is the current agreement and how long it lasts for? I think we need some clarity on this before we can. If we sign up another extension here, and they've already had 3,000 this year, and they've got another 1,200 due, and it goes up to 1,500.
I think that's fair enough. Thank you. Because we didn't realise that this was an ongoing kind of.
I think that's a good idea.
You've only been here a few months, isn't it?
No, exactly. So thank you for the.
So will that mean then you will go back to them and say
we'll go through our accounts and have a proper look and go through all the minutes and find out what's been agreed previously, what's been paid, and so that we can reconcile all of that to make sure that what we're presenting to you is accurate. Because we didn't realise there was any history to it.
Right. And I was going to say, are you going to go back to the farmers market and say to resubmit, or it will be considered in February's meeting? Is that?
We can defer it.
Go back to next month.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
Just
go
checking.
back to them and tell them that that's the.
We'll ask for clarification about what the new payment is for. Is it towards their previous agreement, or is it a new agreement? What they receive?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine.
All right. Then, so good.
So it says they do say that please note that the grant covers 2 financial years. Yeah, let's defer it and we'll go back and make sure that everything we've paid in the last few years is up to speed with what we had previously agreed as a council.
Yeah.
That's sensible.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, that's 6.2. So we move on to item 7, still monies. So is this for information or is it?
So
Is there a proposal?
This is not a proposal. This was directly from Gordon about some monies. So
Yeah, it's all it's probably a little bit garbled, isn't it? I mean, the first thing, it all came from an email I sent. So the first thing is clarification, because I did some research on what. It all actually came from the fact I did the training on the on the planning, and there's lots of great case studies how other town councils had cleverly used their SIL money towards projects for the town, great projects connecting communities, I don't know, all that kind of stuff. So, armed with this knowledge and realising we had SIL money sitting in EMR, and I've always had an ambition, it's the reason I got in the council, to make Withy's Lane somewhat more passable. I thought that's the sort of thing SIL could go on. So all I did was I sent an email to the staff asking if that was the sort of project that SIL could be used for. And one way or another, it's somehow ended up on an agenda. And then I was answering a lot of interesting emails today from people about Sustrans and other things, which I did not expect, but never mind. So that's how it got there. But it's a suggestion. So, that lane, lots of people have asked for that lane to be addressed. It should have been addressed when my housing estate was built. Bain said so. It's never been touched since. So. Feasibility study is the first stage.
I think the problem we may find, I think the problem you might find is that using SIL for a feasibility study is different to using it for the build of a project. But we can get some clarification on that. I think the big issue is that cycleways are the responsibility of WECA and Baines. They tend to be hugely expensive to build and maintain, and that's why councils don't take them on, because the costs involved in either building or operating a cycleway is way outside the budget. I mean, we're already pretty much overstretched on our green space commitments as a council, but I think, and I know what, the amount of cost and maintenance of Baines incur just on the existing cycleways, the liabilities and the maintenance is quite big.
I think that this.
I think in your particular instance, I think the best thing would be to be lobbying Baines or WECA. WECA are already looking at these bringing in the cycleway between Farringdon Gurney and Midsummer Norton. So WECA would be the obvious routes to push for. But the trouble with WECA, you need to demonstrate, like Farringdon Gurney has demonstrated, that it's not just an extension of the cycleway. It will add to a commuting route, and it's that dual purpose. Make sure it's not just a leisure.
Well, that's where this obviously is so good, because it connects to sort of 4 or 5 schools and a rugby club and a cricket club. So it's actually a heavily trodden path in the summer. I think the cycle lane bit is probably a bit of a overstating it. It's a bit like when I was kind of going on about the Midsummer Norton Orbital, a bit too big. Here we're talking about maybe sort of 300 metres of... It's a bridleway. So 300 metres of badly maintained bridleway connecting housing estates and town trust lands.
But
so
whose ownership is that?
It's most... Well, what does bridleway mean? I thought bridleway meant it's got ownership,
Bridleway
but it's like a right of way. Horses can go on it. I think...
But it doesn't mean... I mean, bridleway could mean that there's a public right of way, or it could be it's in public ownership.
According to the planning application from 2010, it was mostly known ownership apart from one little bit that was indeterminate, and they didn't follow it up. And that's why the housing builder, David Wilson, weren't obliged to make good that path. And it was just left with paved routes onto the bridleway that just end up in mud. And everyone said, what happened? And they never did it. But then it said in the planning it was going to be a future project, which never happened, or it was going to be looked at in the future. So I mean, they said it was surprising because most of it's a bridleway, it should be known ownership, and obviously people use that lane to get to the town trust land, the community orchard, and the Withy's Lane Town Park, and the Silver Street Nature House, so it connects it. So yeah, you do get the odd car and horse going up and down it. And I mean,
So
actually,
The car?
yeah. Well, they go up to the the orchards and the what are they called, the allotments at the top. And this is where I do have a declaration of interest, actually, because now that my son's going up to secondary school, he keeps on cutting through there and getting covered in mud. This makes Mrs. Mackay, the mayoress, very upset.
I think the first stage for anything else would be to establish the ownership.
Well, I thought that's the sort of thing a study would do, though. That's really where stage one, no?
Well, it depends. It can do. It doesn't necessarily do it. I mean, same as planning. Planning doesn't necessarily concern itself with ownership. It concerns itself with what is the design and the project. I can apply for planning to build something on your garden and get planning permission approved, but I can't do it because I don't own the garden.
Send me your plan, Sean. I'll accommodate.
Yeah. So I think there's lots of things we could do as a town council that wouldn't cost anything to establish things like ownership.
Right.
But I think after that, we really need to be talking to WECA.
Maybe. I mean, just say we do own.
We have WECA money at the moment for a feasibility study, but that's for the high streets. So there's £100,000 from WECA to do a feasibility study on Middleton High Street and understand what the high street needs.
Free parking.
Yeah. and that's ready to start now. And in fact, the Baines office are ready to start that project now. But that wouldn't go out as far as something like that.
Well, as I say, I was just going to the example of other town councils who have managed to use the planning system and SIL money to provide these corridors to allow residents to connect spaces, and we have an obvious one. So it's the first time I really thought, because originally I thought, well, there's various ways you could fundraise for it, but SIL money, and we have considerable amount of SIL money with no allocation yet. A tiny amount of it is due to expire.
Feasibility study.
I don't know. I mean, is it feasibilitystudy.com? Is there a website?
I've written in my notes. I know we've had various. I'll have to contact Baines and see what the SIL money can be spent on before you commit to a feasibility study. Because SIL money can be spent is where you get it from developers. So when to improve the housing, I can't remember what it's called. So I don't think, but I will double check, a feasibility study would be. It's not on Baines' list.
Typically, you would expect that you turn up having done your feasibility study and say, this is what we want and this is what it'll cost and this is how much SIL money we want to do it. So it would be what you're doing is the prelude to an application for SIL rather than the application for SIL.
Possibly. I mean, I think so you would be allowed. I think you would be allowed to spend SIL. SIL's pretty broad as long as it's for the right reasons. They say the law changed in 2011 about the allocations, and now it's just for the general improvement of the town. It can even be spent on running costs now, so you can use it to run a community bar or whatever. It's basically for improvement of the area. I mean, it's not to make up for developer contributions, because that's S106. That's all been clarified. So I don't know. I've suggested this. It's been brought up by other residents. Sarah mentioned it to me because other residents had come to her about it. So is there any way this can be brought forward, or do I just draw a line under the town council and say... I think it's a worthwhile, if only for the principle of understanding, because we've talked about doing feasibility studies on public toilets. We've talked about feasibility studies and consultancies on things like the neighbourhood plan and the 5-year strategy and stuff like that. So it's an interesting idea to understand whether we can access SIL money for consultations and feasibility studies. Then we could perhaps have a more meaningful conversation about which feasibility studies and consultations we want to do if we can access the money, which ones would be priorities. Yeah.
The first step is, to establish the rules, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, as I say, I've established the rules to a fair extent, shared them with the clerks, asked the Baines SIL monitoring officer, did you know they have one? And got a favourable answer, which is totally in keeping with what I kind of said. So that should probably be double checked. But Baines won't give you a straight answer. Basically what happens is you spend SIL money, they ask you how you spent it, and you have to be able to prove that you haven't done something that you shouldn't have with it. It's a little bit chicken and egg, but I don't think that's a big problem. Maybe the first step would be, so otherwise nothing's going to happen. Would the first step be that the council could be instructed to ascertain what the ownership of that parcel of land is, connecting their two pieces of land? Or is this something that the council simply can't do and I'll continue doing it by myself?
If you can provide a map, a relatively detailed map of the piece of land you're talking about, then I may be able to do that through Baines. Establish ownership.
It would be on the land register.
Not necessarily, no.
No, because you're correct there. Because on the land registry, and I always get the wrong date, they only hold digital records for the last 12, 15 years. So there is a date. I'm not going to make it up because I don't.
Most unregistered land is unregistered because nobody's ever registered it in decades on it.
But the
private way.
landmark registry only hold about 12, 15 years online. They may have paper copies, and you have to write and pay and ask for the paper copy. If it's unregistered, you can adopt the land and adopt it, but it takes 10 years.
Yeah, if you use it, that's what we're doing in the Garden of Friendship in the town park. That's unregistered land that has been developed, and if it's after 10 years nobody's claimed it, then
You can have it.
the town trust can apply for it.
Well, the way these lanes quite well used, relatively, by people accessing the allotments and various holdings, and obviously the town trust land at the far end of it.
So, in terms of action then, it's either Councillor Mackay looks into this further himself, or the clerks are instructed on behalf of the town council to.
I've suggested we should find out who can do this sort of work, whether it's as I say, feasibility.com or New Leaf or any of these firms. Generally consultancies.
Can you take it to one of the working parties?
Not really, because they can't resolve stuff.
No, but the working parties would find out all the information. The working party would find out all the recommendations. They could find out who owns it, if it's not owned or whoever. They could then find costs for feasibility studies. They then would put a recommendation and a paper together to bring to full council for the decision to be made.
They could do, but I could rephrase that as by saying, do you just want me to do it? Because that's what's going to happen.
We can't keep outsourcing every single job in the council. You need to take our ownership of some of these things ourselves.
No, but in the feasibility study, as I say, I mean, there's some simple bits, but then there's a little bit of engineering involved, like any of these projects. I read examples of other towns that had done this, how they had managed to get feasibility studies that had looked into issues of access to join different plots of land, what the engineering problems were. They came up with fairly detailed instructions saying there's waterfalls and there's gradients, and they said, right, this will have to be done if it wants to be, for instance, suitable for two-wheelers or three-wheelers or four-wheelers. And they come up with a study, and I've read a few of them, and then that'll be the sort of thing, and they'll say roughly this is how much it would cost in this sort of today's terms, and usually that goes on a plan, and that's usually what your feasibility study does, and usually engineering consultants or whatever draw this up. And then once it's on a plan, of course, then you can apply to WECA for funding, because they'll go, got a plan, it can be done. The problem is with WECA is they wouldn't generally fund that sort of thing. Even like the rural grant came up the other day saying we've got £40,000 for projects, you know. If you had a project ready to go, you could apply for it. But of course, things like this, you've got to work out whether it's possible first. And that's where I can't provide that expertise myself. So that's why I suggested.
And usage and stuff is data that you can provide. Because that's ultimately what determines whether SIL projects are valid or not, is what is the community benefit to it.
But see, that's already written into the Baines planning, though. So if you go into the actual planning system, a well-used, important pedestrian path, and that's why they put special links from my development onto it to increase permeability.
Okay, but you could produce a report for this specific application of footfall and usage and public benefits. Ultimately, that's what the officers at SIL are going to be looking at, is where's the benefit from this investment?
So it's back to me just doing it. That's fine. That's all I need to do.
I'm happy to help you with stuff.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, that'd be a good start. Thank you. But yeah, cool. Okay, so the town council can't really do anything yet, which is nice and proactive of us. But maybe in the future you might be able to not do something there. Thank you.
Try again.
Thank you very much. Try again.
Okay, right. So finished with that. Great. So item number 8 for notification. rise in pension contributions and pay award. So we've noted that, haven't we? And then, item 9, date for next meeting, which will be Monday the 18th, 19th of Feb.
And is that going to be at 7 o'clock?
Might change.
Yeah.
Because if there's no planning meeting, it might be brought forward.
Does
Yeah.
anybody have any objections of meeting earlier? Or
No?
I don't have objections. I would just say be very, very careful about chopping and changing your mind regularly, because we don't actually have a lot of public coming and stuff, but to me it should be rare that you change the timing of your meetings. So we should be, I think that would be like every month for several months in a row we've made a chop and a change. So
This one could stay fixed at 7. It's just the one before it could vary. It might start at 6:30.
Yeah.
But maybe right, keep this one as a fixed 7 till 9 as a schedule, and then move the planning one to 6. Perhaps.
especially if the odd planning one might be dropped as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but we don't
So,
want.
no, that's right. I'm
councillors
just
forgetting to
confused
tell
whether
me.
it's 7 or 7:30.
I'm confused. Normally I'd send you a reminder, and I was like, I don't know when it started. So.
Meeting